Good morning, everybody. Oh, thank the Lord the kids are going upstairs. I know I fussed at them for wanting to get out of here before, but things have changed. I'm just glad they're leaving. I don't care if you judge me for it. Judge me. I don't care. Got to double check and make sure my pants are not stuck in my socks and they're zipped up and my buttons are all in place. I think I'm all here. Lord have mercy. Somebody in my family is hightailing it out of town today. Cowards. Call us what you want, he said, but we're leaving. Oh, Lordy. Just so you know, our shingle is out. Anybody wants to babysit, we're hiring. Mercy. Very, very difficult to rationalize some things in life, and most of y'all kind of know Ashley and Matt's story and kind of know where we are, and don't know if we're going to have this little boy or not. Don't know how long that's going to last. And he's already so bonded with you. He loves his church. He loves to come here. He thinks of this as the place where Grandpa is and donuts are. And then when he's here, it's just like, he's so sweet and so nice, and you folks are all so nice. And this morning they got here late because somebody in my house can't get up and manage two boys on time. I did fine. I left at 8 o'clock. Someone apparently has trouble managing two boys and fixing their hair and stuff. Not me. And so they didn't get here quite in time for Sunday school. And then I got a text, be sure you have donuts and milk in your office for when we arrive. So I had to go interrupt Jay's class to make sure I had donuts and milk in my office so they could have donuts and milk at church. And then he was reluctant to go to class until I said, you want to go to Miss Kim and Miss Crystal's class? Well, then that was okay. And we went up there and he still wasn't sure because he had a donut in his hand. And then Miss Kim just took him so kindly and talked to him. In about 2 seconds, he was ready to go to her. And Allison said, it takes a village. You folks in church have probably no idea how much of an impact you make on all the kids around this place. When you teach them and you talk to them and you encourage them and you pat them on the back and you love them, and we get to watch them go through school, and go through high school and go off to college, and we're just so proud of you and so proud for you, and we have a certain thrill of just having been a part of your lives for a long, long time. And I watched the little one last night whenever he came into our families. How long has it been? 4 months? 3 months? Huh? November, December, January, February, 4 months. There were certain things about his past that were never disclosed. And one of the traumas that he had was he would take a bath, but you could not turn the water on when he was in the tub. And he would go crazy, just screaming, just hysterical to get out of that tub if you turned the water on. Don't know why, don't know what caused it. He had a proclivity for hitting you in the face constantly. If you didn't like something you said, he'd just hit you in the face. Acting what a little child has, apparently seen somewhere in his past. And last night, Gammy was giving the little one a bath, and he has a couple of toys in the tub and a cup. And I heard him say, more water, and he's in a bathtub. So I stopped to eavesdrop. More water, She said, "Do you want me to turn the water on?" and pointed to the faucet. And he said, "Uh-huh." And so she turned the water on slowly to see. And he stuck his cup over it and filled it up and poured it out and filled it up as if it was absolutely nothing. I can't even tell you how big a transformation just that is from the fear and the trauma. And it's hard to believe when you look at some of these kids around here that any child could ever suffer in America. It's hard to believe that any child could ever have any kind of mistreatment or anything at all. And so now we welcome a new one, and this one is not coming from that kind of situation. It's very hard for mom, for the birth mom and family to let go and say goodbye. They're making a very tough choice, but we would want them to know that the baby will be loved. And I was kind of honored. Of course, they wouldn't name their child after Mason or Hudson. Of course, they wouldn't do that. I think they made a good choice personally. I may be a little prejudiced, but I think they probably made a pretty good choice. I'm sure they'll make sure they call him something like JJ or JD, but I will probably call him Danny occasionally, just so he doesn't forget that that's his name. He will have to have surgery in the next few months. He has a cleft lip, and surgeons have already been in contact with him and let him know that this is all, it didn't damage bone, structure, jaw, teeth. It's just a surface cleft. Huh? Cosmetic. I'll get to the words after a while, maybe. I'm not thinking right now. But somewhere, about the time he's 3 months old, they have already, wasn't a doctor from California already talked to her? And one of the renowned surgeons in America has already been on the phone with him, and they're hooking him up with some doctor at Texas Children's, and they said in about 3 months, it'll be a cosmetic surgery, and they'll be able to, in fact, I think the name of the company, of the organization is something about Smiles. Remember? Anybody remember? Operation Smiles. And so they're going to fix him up in about 3 months and work on him. Poor kid has no clue that he's going to go to surgery at a very early age. Poor guy. But he will be surrounded by people that are praying and loving him, and it'll be all right. Thank you for your patience and your kindness. Thank you for putting up with some bad hours and grumpy attitudes, and thank you for tolerating a short and bad sermon today. I don't even know if I have a sermon. I think I have one. I haven't had time to proofread it, so if something comes up on the screen that's misspelled or obscene or God knows what, please forgive me. You're going to see it the same time I'm going to see it today, because I simply haven't had time to do much more. But I think you'll like it. I think it will bless you. It certainly blessed me when I was trying to think about it, put it together. I want to talk to you about identity, and we're going to start with Matthew, the 3rd chapter, verse 16, and an early story in the life and ministry of Jesus. When Jesus was baptized, immediately he went up from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him. I don't know what that means. How do the heavens open? You ever thought about that phrase? The heavens were opened. I don't know what that means. I think it would be pretty cool. I don't know if it just means the clouds were in the sky and they parted, or if something phenomenal took place. I don't know. But the heavens were opened. And maybe he's the only one that saw it. But he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and coming to rest on him. And behold, a voice from heaven said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." And then we discover that right after that, he is led into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. 3rd chapter, and the tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. And I have skipped the response of Christ. I've preached this before just so I could preach about how Christ responded to temptation. But I want to go to somewhere else today. So let me just show you what the tempter did. The tempter said, if you're the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. The second temptation, then the devil took him to the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. And then angels would rescue him and so on and so forth. Third temptation, again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. And so just so you know how this story plays out, I abbreviated it with just two statements. He just got through hearing from God, you are my beloved Son. And then his temptation came, are you really? You notice that? If you are. If you're who you think you are. If you're who he said you were, then do this and do that. Prove that you're who you are. And so from that, I just want to make one simple statement today in two parts. And I want to say that I think the reason he did not fall to temptation was because he knew who he was. And the reason you and I do fall to temptation is because we do not know who we are. If you knew who you were, you would not have to respond to the tempter. The tempter came, if you are, and he simply quoted verse to him, maintaining his posture and his position by the identity that had just been given to him from heaven. You are my beloved Son. If you are, came the temptation. You and I fall to temptation because we do not know who we are. And there are so many verses we could turn to. I just want to turn to two or three. John the 15th chapter, verse 15. Jesus himself looked at his men, ergo to us, and said, I do not call you servants any longer. Because a servant does not know what his Lord is going to do. But I have called you friends, for all the things that I have heard of my Father, I have made known to you. This is Christ saying to all of us, I have not kept any of my Father's promises from you. Everything he gave me and told me I could do or give to you, you are my friend, and I have given you everything that he gave me to pass on. Because you're not servants to him. You're his friend. You've heard me say before that I don't have the right, you don't have the right to call ourselves friends of God. That would be so presumptuous. That's like saying, I'm Facebook friends with the President Trump, so he and I are buddies. We're friends. No, we're not. We're not friends. The only way we would ever be friends would be if he chose to make me his friend. I won't be his friend. Never will be his friend. Won't have any possibility of being his friend. Politicians, you know, they're your friends if they choose to make you one. I went to vote last week before last, however long it's been now. I went to cast my early vote, and I'm walking into the polling place, and people are, you know how people are out there with all their cards and their voters' guides, and they're hustling trying to get you to vote for their. And this dude comes over in blue jeans and a baseball cap, and he says, you got a voter guide? And I said, I do. And he said, would you like another one? And I said, no, sir, I've got the one I brought. And he said, well, all right, just thank you for voting. Stuck his hand out, shook, and he said, I'm Steve Toth. And I said, I'm Danny. Oh. I recognize the name. And I don't know if you voted for Steve Toth or not, but I did. So I could tell him beforehand. I said, oh, well, I'm fixing to go in here and cast my vote for you unless your ballot has a different candidate on it. You want to hand me yours, and I'll check yours out against mine. And so I went in and voted. When I came out, I saw him still hustling people over. I walked over to him, and I said, I just want to thank you for your service. You thank me for voting. I want to thank you for being willing to serve, and I thank you for a conservative voice, and so on and so forth. Can I call him my friend? No. No, we met in the parking lot at the voting place. And the only way he and I will ever be friends would be if he chose to make me his friend. I can't be presumptuous and say, I'm a friend of God because I got it figured out. No, I'm a friend because one day he said, I'm not going to make you a servant. I'm going to make you a friend. You're going to be my buddy. You're my pal. I'm going to make you an insider. I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to pass on the secrets from my Father to you. Do you understand that? That's what he did. And then look, gets even better. Galatians, the 4th chapter, verse 6. Because you're sons, we graduated from just friends after Christ came into us. See, when Jesus said, I'm going to make you my friends, he hadn't yet been crucified and transfigured, and we're just friends. But when he was crucified and the debt was paid, now the scripture comes and says, you are sons of God. God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. My wife's uncle is a teacher over at Grace Church in Humble, and they emailed us after they saw the birth announcement on the adopted baby and said his lesson title tomorrow is The Spirit of Adoption. He's going to be speaking in his class about how all of us are children of God because he adopted us all. And there's nothing quite like the contrast between birth and adoption. Let me sum it up quickly for you so I won't lose 2 daughters as my friends. We gave birth to Allison and Ashley. We had to take what came out. We had no choice. Ashley has chosen a baby. God didn't give birth to us per se. He adopted us. We were grafted into the vine. The spirit of adoption came so that you and I can legally and rightfully say, he is our Father. We were not in the heritage of the Jewish faith that everybody thought the Jewish Savior would come to, but we have been grafted into that vine. We've been adopted into that family. That means he chose us, warts and all, flaws and all. And he looked at us and said, you're my sons. And then 1 John 1:3, the 3rd chapter, 1st verse just kind of says it in the way most of us would want to say it, like an exclamation. Oh my, what manner of love. That's what behold means. It's just an exclamation. It ought to have an exclamation point behind it. Behold. It's like saying, oh my goodness, look at this. What manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should not just be servants or friends or subjects in his kingdom, but we are sons. And when you're a son, you have all the rights and all the heirship of whatever your father has, even if you're an adopted son. And so that's who you are. Wouldn't it help if you knew and could remind yourself and remember who you are every time temptation comes? If every time the devil were to tempt me and say, if I just came back and said, there's no if here. I know who I am. I'm not going to sin. I'm not going to fall into temptation. I'm not going to fall for your trap. I'm head and shoulders above where you want to take me. I'm not going to the gutter. Not going to dwell in lust. Not going to live with superficial greed. I'm higher and loftier than all of your temptations. Tempt me with all you can. Power, lust, greed, money, fame, fortune. That's what the devil was doing in the wilderness. But no matter what you tempt me with, I have been elevated to a position higher than anything you can offer me in this world. Offer me the best. Show me the best you could give me if I'll just compromise my faith and walk away. And when you show me the highest throne you could put me on this earth, I'm already sitting on one so much higher than that, because I am a son of God. I am God's child. You're a daughter. You're a son. Son was not specific to gender, even though there's some want to make it and take all things out. It's mankind. You are a child of God. And if you could remember who you are when temptation comes, it'd be easier to just ignore the temptation. You're seated so much above flesh and lust and pride and greed. Stay where you are and remind yourself. And then the second factor of that is we fall to temptation because we forget whose we are. You belong to somebody. 1 Corinthians 6:20 says you've been bought with a price. And therefore you glorify God in your body and in your spirit because they are God's. My body is God's. I tried to give it to him the last couple of nights. It's yours, God. Would you refresh it just a tad? You got any adrenaline left you could maybe pass on to your body? It's wearing a little thin, but it's yours. Preserve your body. Keep it from the temptation path because it's been bought and paid for. How was it bought? Well, and at the risk of being terribly redundant, but that's the best I've got today. I love the little expression when a little child is asked, how much do you love me? And mommy and daddy say, I love you this much. And then, I love you this much. No, I love you this much. And then the parent can always reach so much wider than the child. I love you this much. Measure them. Who's his widest? I love you this much. And somebody once said, that's kind of what Christ said when we said, how much do you love us? He said, I love you this much. And stretched out his arms and died. That's a price. When Paul wrote, you have been bought with a price, the price was Calvary. And the blood that Christ shed was a necessary payment for you. You've been bought. And the side story to that is you just have to understand how worth and value is measured. Worth and value is not measured by years or dents on a fender. It is measured by what somebody is willing to pay. Matt and Ashley were car shopping in the middle of all of this. They were trying to find a minivan. And so they dumped it on somebody, not calling any name. I hope they're not watching this morning. I hope they're preoccupied. I discovered that the value of a vehicle is not really determined by much more than what somebody's willing to pay for it. You think your car is worth $20,000. Oh yeah, take it to a dealer and trade it in. It's worth $1,000. What? I went from 20 to 1,000. Yeah, well, we might give you 6. Yeah. And you know what? You'll take that if you're desperate, because that's all it's worth at that moment, because that's all somebody's willing to pay. We joke about Elvis Presley and how much people paid for things he just touched. And the silliest is the banana peel that was in the bedroom the night he died. I've forgotten how much. They captured that. Somebody kept it and put it under a glass dome. And it still sits on somebody's shelf today, and they paid something like $180,000 for the last banana peel from the last banana. Is it worth that money? Of course not. Why is it so expensive? Because that's what somebody was willing to pay for it. Someone determined its value by simply saying, this is what I will pay. I like to watch some of those art auctions and things on TV, Antique Roadshow and some of that kind of stuff, and Pickers or whatever those guys are. I like to watch some of that stuff occasionally simply because I'm always amazed that something your grandma had sitting on a shelf and you was fixing to throw away. And it's absolutely worthless to any human being. But it's worth $500 gazillion million because, well, they just happened to get lucky when they bought it and found it in the garage. My parents never bought anything ever that was worth anything. But I hung on to one or two things just in case. I've got a toaster from my father like you've never seen, but it's electric. It's not antique because it's electric. And I've got the cord. Oh my goodness, you've never seen a cord like that. It's big cloth, but the sides butterfly and open up. And you lay the bread on the side and close it back up. And the little vents are in the middle, the heater things are in the middle. Isn't that cool? It's worth absolutely nothing. Trust me, I've actually tried to see. I tried to find the company in St. Louis, Missouri that made it. They went broke so long ago, making bad toasters probably. I haven't thrown it away. You know why? You would think, well, because it's your father's and its memory. Oh no, because I'm thinking one day it might be worth something. Some poor fool might come by one day and say, my mama had one just like that. I give you $500. Sold. So, because the only way that has any value is if somebody is willing to pay a certain amount for it. Now I want you to just lose yourself in your self-depression for a moment. And all of us struggle, and we struggle with sin. And all of us struggle with finances occasionally, and we struggle to pay our bills. And all of us are late now and then, and most of us in this room have had our lights turned off when we was at least young because we struggled. And each little incident in life takes away your self-worth and your self-value and your self-image. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day and you'll just look in the mirror after you've abused your wife or your husband for the umpteenth time, and you've raised your voice and yelled, and you've said words you wish you could take back, and you can't take them back. And once in a while you get up and you look in the mirror and you really don't have much pride in the person that you're looking at. And it's easy to start feeling worthless. But if I could just remind myself how valuable I am. Well, how do you know you're valuable? Because the price that he was willing to pay set my value. My value is not based on whether I lost my temper last week or said a bad word or had a bad thought or struggled with a temptation. My value was set by the price he was willing to pay. He bought me. I've been bought with a price. And what a price. Oh, when temptation comes tomorrow, if I could just remind myself who I am and whose I am. I'm his son. He chose me by adoption. I'm grafted in because he selected me, and then he paid for me dearly. He set my value when he went to Calvary. So I just tell you today, forget who you are, forget whose you are, and then you'll always be trying to prove something to somebody. If you are, prove it. But if you know who you are, and you know whose you are, every temptation will lose its appeal. You are a child of God. You are bought with a price. You have been set apart for his glory. Rejoice in that. And every temptation will be easier to overcome. Stand with me. Don't ever expect this short a sermon again. We'll not be babysitting on Saturday nights too much anymore. Somebody say, I am a child of God. I am valuable. I'm worth something because he paid in blood for my soul. Father, thank you today. Thank you for purchasing me. We all feel worthless sometimes. Every one of us in this room struggle with our self-worth, our self-identity. We struggle with our failures and our losses. Sometimes we compare ourselves to others and feel like we're just coming up so short. We wonder why you would even waste time with us. But you chose the price. We had no value. We had no value, no price tag. You chose the price that you were willing to pay for us. Remind us today, we are yours. You bought us. You paid an ultimate dear price. You set our value. We are sons and daughters of the Almighty God. You bought us. We can face any temptation and remind ourselves of our identity, who we are and whose we are. And we will overcome. We will stand and we will overcome. And we'll know that we've been bought, and that's why we're saved and sanctified. Thank you for your word and your promises, and thank you for your spirit within us. And somebody say, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Give the Lord a hand of praise. Father, thank you today. Father, thank you today. Amen, amen. Shake hands and love somebody and hug somebody. And we'll see you Sunday morning. No Wednesday night this week. Spring break, no Wednesday night.